Oh, hey there, how's it going? I'm Jared from Fast Forward Film, and today we're going to be talking about how to plan a video shoot. If there's one thing I wish I had when me and Reese started this company, it's just a bit of direction on how to plan and organise any sort of video shoot. And that's exactly what I'm going to do for you guys today. I think we ride. So typically when me and Reese get a client, we usually have a Zoom call, especially at the moment, or we meet them in person and we speak to them about what ideas they have, especially surrounding what sort of budget they have. When we know those two things, we can sort of make a decision in both of our heads about where to kind of take the video. If, for instance, they're looking at doing a sci-fi futuristic thing, but their budget's not very large, then we might try and discuss with them how we might approach it and maybe in a more minimalistic way. But for instance, if there's a really simple video idea that they have, we might find ways to make it a bit more interesting, a little bit more adventurous. So it's kind of a back and forth between us and whatever client it is that we have. Once we've solidified our ideas, me and Reese then start working on a shot list together. Obviously, me and Reese are a partnership, we're a duo, and so because of that, Reese takes on a certain set of roles and I take on a certain set of roles. And because of that, the workload is separated a lot more easily. We can manage it a lot easier. If, for instance, you guys are doing this on your own, then whatever I talk about in terms of me and Reese, you might have to do all entirely by yourself. So just bear in mind that when I'm talking about who does what in terms of this company, it might be a bit different for you and you might have to do both of these jobs. Once me and Reese have a good grasp on what the client's idea is and what sort of direction they want to take their business or their music or their company or whatever it is, then me and Reese work together to get a shot list together. Now, a shot list is extremely important no matter what sort of shoot you're doing. You're always going to want to turn up on the day with at least a shot list or some sort of plan of what exactly it is you're going to shoot. So it doesn't come as much surprise that the first thing we're going to be talking about in terms of how to prepare for a shoot is the shot list. How do we go about organizing that? Me personally, because me and Reese have a Google Drive account, I like using Google Sheets. It's really simple. It's a simplified version of Microsoft Excel. Everything's really clear and really easily laid out. The reason that spreadsheets are a good idea, in my opinion, is because you can set it out in columns, and by using columns, it's a lot easier to discern at what point you're talking about which thing. And I'll explain what that means in a second. So looking at the spreadsheet now, you can see that I've already got 8 items at the very top, and we're going to talk about each one very quickly. The first item is the shot, and this is in relation to what order the sequence of events occurs within the video that you're planning. So if you're expecting, something to happen in Act 1 at one location, something to happen in Act 2 at the second location, and so on, then you'd write it out in terms of chronological order. So the very first shot we see will be shot 1, and then we go down like that, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the good thing about using any sort of spreadsheet is that you can click and drag to show all the numbers in sequential order. Once you've got all that done, you're going to head straight to the description. Now, the description is going to be where you try and fill up as much of this box as you can, describing each shot in detail. So the reason for this is if you have every shot as thought out as possible, then regardless of whether you turn up on the day, you might find that certain locations don't allow for certain shots, or maybe that things always change on set, and so you've got to always be prepared for that. But as long as beforehand you've thought as much as possible about the shot you're aiming for, then on the day you can make adaptations and changes so that you can get as close to the shot that you were looking for as possible. And so you'd go through and you'd write a description for each shot using either the storyboard or the shot list that you have written down or that you've thought out as reference. Me and Reese usually work with storyboards, so it's quite easy to look at the shot and figure out exactly what's happening in that shot. So I would put something along the lines of close up, gimbal movement following the lead's face as he exits car. And all this does is it gives us an example of what type of shot it is. It's a close up and what sort of equipment we might need to use in order to do that. So it's a gimbal, for instance, and we'd be following the lead character as he exits the car. It's quite simple. You just go through and you do a description for every single shot that you've got in the sequence. Next up is location. Location is extremely important, as I'll get into in a little while. I haven't put it in the description because I'd like the description to kind of explain more what's going on in the scene with the actor and the camera. So description is reserved for camera and action, and the location is reserved purely for the location. And you give it a nice simple name, so we could call it house exterior. Next up, we have equipment. So for instance, we, in this example, have the gimbal. So it would be as simple as writing gimbal.
How's it going, guys? Reese here from the future. Just thought I'd say, Jared, learn how to spell gimbal. That's all. Enjoy the video, like, comment and subscribe. Ta-da.
But as it's an exterior shot, we might want to bring a light with us, for instance, so you could write, it's the Aperture 600D. Next up on the list is the actors that are required for this scene. You can write cast or actors, I switch between the two. So for instance, this is our lead male. So now I have a tab up here for music. This is in particular for doing music videos. If for instance, during the talk that you've had with your client, they suggest that they'd like to be singing throughout the music video, then it's important to know exactly at which point in the song you'll be doing certain shots. So if in this example, the client wanted to be singing straight off the bat in the very first shot, then I could just write the times of the song that the shot would roughly take. All this means is that when we're on set, whoever's handling the music knows exactly when to play the music from and when to stop it. Next up is the props tab. In the props tab, all we have to put in here is anything that was in the description that is important to the scene. This is a little bit different from set dressing, which might come about prior to the shoot date, but not during this stage of planning. All that's required here are props that are essential for the story to progress. So in this case, we know that the lead actor is going to need a car. A little side note, cars can sometimes be locations too. For instance, if you're in the interior of a car and you're needing to shoot a journey of some kind. So the line gets a little bit blurred between whether a car is a prop or a location. For this example I'm doing right now, we're keeping it as a prop because we never actually film inside the car. And last up on this list is the time of day. And this is in line with what time of day it's meant to be in the story of the video. So for example, we could be trying to shoot a dusk scene at dawn. It's not ideal, you would rather do it the other way around, but there may be some situations, as I'll go over in a bit, where that might need to be the case. All you have to put in this box is what time of day you ideally want it to be for the story. So we're going to say it's dusk. Now, once you've gone through your entire shot list or storyboard and you've figured out the entire description, the location of where every single shot needs to happen, the equipment, the actors, the music, the props, the time of day, and so on and so forth, you're going to have an absolute mess of a shot list. It's going to look very, very confusing. And personally, the best way that I found to rectify that is to organize it in terms of location. So here we have an example from a previous shoot me and Reese have done. As you can see here, I've color coded each row to be in line with the location that is necessary for that shot. So for instance, we have corporate exterior being a light blue, the corporate interior being a medium blue, and a different room in the corporate interior to be a dark blue. And this goes on throughout the whole process. By doing this, it becomes really easy to see where each location is, where the shots take place, and how they're organized structurally during the story. So if, like us, you end up doing some shoots where the stories are quite elaborate and you end up going to several locations during the shoot, it can be really handy to color code, but then also to arrange this shot list now as a separate document. So what I'd need to do is head to the bottom, create a new tab, and you can see that I've organized all the shots that are in any one location to be in one group. What this enables us to do is to have a shot list that me and Reese can use on the shoot day itself. So this shot list is for the crew in particular. This isn't for the client to see, or even the cast. They don't necessarily need to see it. It might be helpful in some situations. Me and Reese done a shoot where the lead actress really wanted to get a grasp on the story, So I wouldn't send her this copy of the shot list. I'd send her the earlier copy of the shot list where she can read through our ideas about how the shots are going to play out. Once you have this shot list, you've now got a list of shots that you're going to shoot in each location. And this is helpful because when you turn up to a location, it could be really hard siphoning through a chronologically listed shot list. You'll have to go to any of the shots that are in a specific location, and this just lays them out nice and simply in one space. This also helps us with the next step of the planning. So ideally, after you've finished laying out the shot list in location form, the best step to take next is to find those locations. Now, ideally you'd want to go and see the locations in person first so that you can plan things like shot angles, lighting setups, and even cast and crew positioning during the shoot. It's going to be a whole lot easier if you take this shot list with you, because then you know that once you've turned up to a location, you're going to shoot these 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 shots. So what I've done for you guys at home who don't want to have to make this yourselves, we've left a link in the description below which enables you to download a base template of all of the documents that we'll be going through here today. It just makes things a lot easier if you want to do them yourself at home. So feel free, tuck in, enjoy. So let's say that you have a location sorted. Let's say you've gone and scouted it out. The next thing you want to do is draw up a day plan. Now, day plan is a really basic version of a call sheet. It's something that you will eventually be showing to the cast and maybe even to the crew as well, so that they know things such as when to turn up, how long they'll be at certain locations for, and the general layout of the day. To begin that process, the best first thing to do is to start with the location itself. Now, don't worry too much about order because we're not putting it in order yet, that will come later. So in this example, we have a venue exterior, and I've just kept that nice and generic for now. Underneath that, you'd put the address, so it's 1004 Heathland Road. And as you can see, we have 5 tabs that go from action, length, time, cast, and prop. So the action is just describing who is doing what. So for instance, we have the crew arrival and we have the cast arrival. They're typically at different times in the day. You normally want your crew to turn up before everyone else. So for instance, you would want them turning up at 8:30, whereas the cast might not turn up until 9 AM. Once you have that, we have to then talk about setup. Setup's a bit of a tricky one, and it gets easier the more you do it. With the shot list to hand, it's worth going over and talking with your DP to discuss what sort of lighting needs sorting out and what sort of angles are going to be set up and what sort of equipment will need to be set up, so that you have a general idea on how long it will take to do the whole setup for the entire location. There may be occasions where you need to do a couple of different setups in the same location, in which case you just take this color-coded tab and you just copy it and move it to underneath, and you carry on like that. As long as where the setup is concerned, you have the shots that are required for that setup underneath. Once you have the setup timings sort of confirmed with your DP, it's worth typing in the length of time that might take. Then when you have the shots that you need for this particular location and for this particular setup written in your shots bar, you're gonna express roughly how long it might take to do those shots. Again, this is something that you kind of need to feel out after doing a few shoots for yourself. Typically giving yourself more time for any of this is the best idea possible, but you might be time limited depending on the client's budget or how much time the client actually has available to do the shoot. Next up we have cast. In this box, we're going to put any of the cast members who are going to be needed for the shots that we've determined for this location. And last but not least, we have the props. This is, again, something that we've taken from the shot list form that we set up earlier. Everything should be there, and now it's just a case of moving the relevant material into the relevant boxes. Okay, so once you've gone through your entire shot list and sorted out all your locations, and then you've moved those locations onto your day plan, and you've gone through and worked out exactly how long each setup and each shoot will actually take for each location, then it's time to sort out timings. And timings can be a real difficulty. Usually this stage of the process is done in conjunction with hiring the venues. You may have scouted them already, but booking them in might limit yourself in terms of whether you can do that shoot at that time on that day. We found it very difficult in the past to book a location first and then organize a shoot around that location. You usually are going to have better luck doing them both at the same time. And the reason is, very simply, if you find out that, oh wait, we can't shoot this location at this time of day, but we've already booked it at that time of day, it's going to be very hard to move things around, especially people and their busy lives, around that change or that difficulty. So in this example, we are looking at each location and we have the venue exterior and then 2 interior, green room and stage for the venue. Well, let's say for instance, we wanted the venue exterior to happen around the morning time, early morning time. Then it looks like in terms of time of day, we've got it in a very good position. But let's say we can't hire the green room until later in the evening. Well, that means we have to take this entire section, move it out the way, and see if we can get the venue stage available for earlier in the day. If we can, then we simply move it, and then we hire the venue green room for later in the day. It's as simple as that. The problem that people often run into is not doing this at the right time in the stage of pre-production or the planning stages. Leaving it too late, you might not get the relevant information to the required people quick enough, and doing it too early, you might box yourself in and you might not be able to get certain locations at the times that you needed them. To finish off, really, all that's needed is necessities. So things like travel, which is going to take up time. Yes, you may film the venue exterior from 9 AM till 10:30, but if the venue is in a completely different town and you need to travel there and you need to get crew and equipment and cast to that location, then you need to make sure you have a general idea of how far away the next location will be, plug that into your day plan, and you'll be well. So now you have your travel times involved. There's one final thing you need to bear in mind. That's a necessity. And that's people need to eat. Now, unless you have crafty services there with their tea and biscuits, and unless you have full-blown food services at your production, you need to allow time for the cast and the crew to go and get themselves some food. So all you have to do is find a relevant time of day. You can't stick food at about 7 AM and not again until and then not again until about 10 PM. That won't work. You usually have a lunch or a dinner break. So that's about it. As long as you have your shot list with you on the shoot day so that you know where you are, what you're shooting and where you're heading next in case anyone asks. And as long as you get a day plan, or at least a rough day plan, to the client and to the cast and crew in good time before a production, then you should be hunky-dory. You should be absolutely fine. It's always done well for us. It's taken a little bit of weaning to figure this one out, but we're there. That's about it for today. So hopefully you've understood and enjoyed the process that we go through whenever we're organising a shoot. If you've enjoyed it, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and leave a little tasty comment if you have any questions. I'll see you next time.